Okay, welcome to class. Today, our main focus that we worked on was how did rulers expand their empire. I'm also going to go briefly over how did rulers maintain power in West Africa. But for the first one, how did rulers maintain and expand their empire? What this looks like, we have done example after example of doing very similar activities. There are four sources. So you read them one by one. So you'd first read source one. And then you get to decide which box it goes into. Does source one go into maintain? Does it go into expand? Okay, so I kind of combined my last two classes into this, and this is kind of what they wrote. So please keep in mind, this is what other students have written. I highly recommend you write your own. The reason being is at the bottom, when you have to write your formative performance task, which is worth a mastery grade, it's worth more points. It's a lot easier to do it if you write things in your own words, and I'll explain that at the end. But for this class, they thought source one was more an example of expanding the empire. And a few things different students wrote was that Mali grew rich and powerful, and because it said that word grew, they argued that growing means expanding. This student had copied and used the passage says Mali's location in Niger allowed its people to control trade on the river. This person thought this shows how Mali expanded their trading empire, which again, expansion. My last class also agreed that it uses the word conquer, that they conquered nearby kingdoms, which is a form of expansion. For source two, we kind of got a really good division and a good little debate going on of which one was which is what I want, that if you read through this, please do not feel you have to have exactly what's on my screen. It is opinionated as long as you explain yourself. A lot of people thought it was maintaining, that one student said they had a problem, which was people coming through their kingdom. They came up with a solution, which was taxing, because they wanted to maintain their empire. This source really talks a lot about taxes, and both of my classes kind of talked about taxes equals money, which equals power. But one student wanted to argue that because of that taxes, they were still expanding because they got rich, they could expand their empire. So it all just really depends on your viewpoint. And notice, like, especially in this example, many students were starting to use quotes from the text, meaning they were copying and pasting and saying, I got this from the text. That is excellent. And if you start getting in the habit of doing that to cite your evidence, it's really going to help you at the end when you have to write that paragraph. Source three was even better. Students were all over the place of wanting to argue different sides, and it was really beautiful. So source three, some felt it was expanding because they were creating alliances. They were expanding their religion throughout trading. That talked about spreading Islam. They also talked about caravans in this source, that trading, especially gold, that's a form of expansion. But over here, and notice how this person in source three, the passage says, and they use a direct quote and citing that from the passage. And that's an excellent way of doing this. This person wanted to argue that this shows how sub-Saharan Africa kept things for trading purposes that allowed them to maintain their goods and supplies. That source three did mention how they didn't have to sell their own gold because they had so many people coming, which is more maintaining. And again, another class also said the same thing. By maintaining, they kept their metal and gold to themselves. Source four, again, was a little bit of both. Some argue that slaves did the majority of the labor, that is a form of expansion because their city grew, they grew wealthy off of slavery. But then a lot of people also thought it was maintaining, that they allowed slaves to maintain their work, heavy duty, this created balance of the community. And they also thought, this other class that maintain Ghana were using slaves to maintain their environment and do work. Again, notice how this person used a direct quote from the actual text to back up what she was trying to say. That you are welcome to do that, to use a direct quote as long as you say, I got it from this source and this is why. So the bottom part, the formative performance task, this is probably the most points. It is a mastery grade. So please, when I say write 5 sentences, if not more, you need to be in the habit of writing 5. Please don't just copy and paste what I have written. I am looking for your own words. I just am giving this as an example, so I do not want to see 20 of you turning in the same thing that's written. I just want to show you and model for you what I'm looking for. So this question is saying, explain how West Africa either maintained or expanded their empire. Okay, so I would start with a complete sentence. So I put West Africa and this person wanted maintained. So this West Africa maintained because I think source 4 is maintaining because Ghana were using slaves to maintain their environment and do work to keep them going. In the text, it said, and then they cite the exact source from this slideshow. So again, if you're confused where I'm getting this information, the slideshow. That is a beautiful example of using the text. Now, this person would still have to go and write more because this isn't full 5 sentences. So then maybe after that, I could write, I would also think this is an example of expansion because that maybe if you wrote things in your own words, you can come right back up here and use another one. So like this one had a direct quote, copy and paste it because I already wrote it. But again, you have to put things in your own words in order to copy and paste your own words. And I would add it. So again, you're explaining how did West Africa maintain or expand their empire? You do that by reading these sources. Again, I have office hours if you ever get stuck on Mondays and Wednesdays between 9 and 11 and then 12 and 2. I usually just post a link in Google Classroom. If you get really stuck on this, I do take work late and you get full credit for it. So if you get really stuck, please, come into these office hours. I'm more than happy to help you. For this other assignment, how did rulers maintain their power? So this one does involve a lot more reading. So just take it one piece at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. There's only 2 sources, but it does, again, require a lot more reading. So source A is going to talk about Ghana. When you read this, so yes, it is a little bit more reading, but I want you to practice reading. And then source B is talking about Mali. And then when you scroll all the way down here, it wants you to kind of do what we just did in that last activity. Explain how did they maintain or expand power. Okay, I recommend listing 1 or 2 examples for those. I'm expecting you to do this one on your own. I'm not going to type out tons and tons of answers because there's so many answers you could have. So read through this. I will tell you both of these sources have a little bit of examples for both maintaining and expanding. So read through this. Try to see if you can pull them out. You type them in A and you type them in source B. And then down here, it's similar to the last activity. Tell me how did Mali and Ghana, which is source A and B, how did they show that they maintained or expanded power? Again, I'm looking for a full paragraph. You are welcome to cite exact text as long as you say in the passage or in the text that if you want to copy exact examples from this, you are welcome to do that. As long as you explain yourself. You don't just copy and paste the entire thing. But those are those 2 assignments. Please do not forget your quotes of the days. Each and every day, you still get points for those. And good luck. Again, office hours, my email, if you need me. Good luck.